From the far reaches of the Milky Way galaxy, it's Retro Nerd Girl with a film review for you. Today I'll be reviewing the movie Ghostbusters, released in 1984. Starring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis. Directed by Ivan Reitman. Genre: action, adventure, comedy. The rating is PG. The budget is $30 million estimated. My rating is a 9.5. The synopsis is, the story begins with the friendship of three parapsychologists and their adventure to start a ghost removal service company in New York City after being kicked out of a prestigious institution. Their budding business meets up with its biggest challenge as a young orchestral musician needs their help in solving a ghost mystery that may mean the end of the world. It is up to the Ghostbusters to save us all. My enjoyment. Actually, this is a no-brainer. This is one of my favorite films. I was 14 when this movie came out in theaters, and I thought it was fun then. Even though I've seen this movie hundreds of times, it's still a wonder to me how they pulled it off and why it still cracks me up. For me, on the whole, this movie still holds up as one of my favorite films. The pacing. At an hour and 45 minutes, the pacing is great. I can't think of any moments that didn't work for me because it really kept me enthralled from the start to finish. There are a few slow parts, but they are needed in order to tell the story. The story. The idea for the film isn't entirely original. Back in 1975, Filmation created the Ghostbusters TV show about a team of ghost investigators and a gorilla. I can't imagine that the creator of the 1984 Ghostbusters movie, Dan Aykroyd, didn't know of the show since he had been personally involved and fascinated with the paranormal. However, he had a spin on the idea of making the characters scientists, and his original title for the film was Ghost Smashers. Ghostbusters would be a better name for the film, so Columbia Pictures paid Filmation for a license to use the name. Other pre-Ghostbusters Ghostbusters and influential properties would be the comedic film released in 1946 called Spookbusters, where the Bowery boys graduate from exterminating school and set up their new business and quickly get a job to remove ghosts from an old abandoned mansion. Dan Aykroyd has mentioned the Bowery Boys as an inspiration for Ghostbusters in an interview on QTV in 2010. There was also Goober and the Ghost Chasers, a Hanna-Barbera Productions animated TV series in 1973, and then finally a 1937 Disney short animation, Lonesome Ghosts, starring Mickey, Goofy, and Donald. The Ajax Ghost Exterminators are called to drive out 4 ghosts from a haunted abandoned house. However, it was the ghost who called, bored of no one to haunt. Famously, in the short, Goofy says, "I ain't scared of no ghost." Doesn't that sound a little familiar? Dan Aykroyd's original script details a group of ghost smashers traveling through time, space, and other dimensions, combating huge ghosts, of which the Stay-Puft Marshmallow Man was just one of many. They wore SWAT-like outfits and used wands instead of proton packs to fight the ghosts. That sounds, pretty cool, but back in 1984, the budget for a movie like that would have been about $300 million to make. Yikes! Director Ivan Reitman got Harold Ramis together with Dan to write a screenplay that would give the story a major overhaul to fit a workable budget of only $30 million given by Columbia Pictures, and they were also given a year to put it in theaters. And so, our classic Ghostbusters story was crafted. Shortly after the Ghostbusters go into business, an orchestral musician, Dana Barrett, has a paranormal incident that is the cornerstone to the return of the powerful interdimensional destroyer of worlds and Sumerian god, Gozer the Gozerian. A hotel has been having ghost haunts for years, but up until 2 weeks before, the ghosts begin to really act up, and many other incidences have been occurring all around the city, keeping the Ghostbusters very busy. It's important to note that this movie is actually not intended for kids. It is done in such a way that some of the things that were meant for adults went completely unnoticed, such as the blatant gatekeeper/keymaster reference to the act of sex. Yes, the fornication of the gatekeeper and the keymaster is needed in order to summon the Gozerian, and it all happens off screen. There's also other sexually driven moments. Egon seems to pop up from between Janine's legs, wink wink, from under her desk. Ray gets a sexual favor from a ghost, and Venkman offers to get the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man quote-unquote laid in order to save the city. Scandalous! Besides that, there are lots of foreshadowing moments in the film. The opening shot of the lion statue outside of the New York Public Library foreshadows the Terror Dogs, Zool and Vince Clortho. The Keymaster inhabits the body of Dana Barrett's neighbor by the name of Louis Tully. He is locked out of his apartment several times, which is ironic because he becomes the Keymaster. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Bag is on the egg frying counter, foreshadowing the form of the Destructor. Dana Barrett and Louis Tully are introduced to the film nearly at the very same time, foreshadowing their later connection to one another. There are two main challenges in this film: the non-believers and Gozer the Gozerian, who threatens to destroy our world. The non-believers take the form of many characters, even the ones that are protagonists, but it is in the form of Walter Peck that the Ghostbusters face their biggest human challenge. Walter is actually just doing his job to protect New Yorkers from dangerous materials. But his first meeting with one of the Ghostbusters, Dr. Venkman, ends disastrously, and it is what enrages him to shut down the Ghostbusters operation. The second challenge is Gozer the Gozerian. Gozer is likely the name related to an actual documented haunting in England, during which the name Gozer appeared mysteriously throughout the house, written on the walls, and other things. The paranormal climate is ripe for Gozer's return. Gozer is a fantastic character. I love the idea that Gozer can choose whatever form it wants to appear, and then it makes its victims ultimately choose the form that will destroy them. What a clever idea! It's frightening and funny at the same time. Gozer is waiting to be summoned by the Terror Dogs, Zool and Vince Clortho. Their appearance in the film creates a lot of suspense and tension in the story, balancing the comedy with a little terror. Initially, when they appear, they make you wonder for a minute whether or not it's going to take a gory turn in the film. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is a wonderful touch to this fantastical film. The audience gets the irony immediately when you see him, and it is one of the things that visually sets this film apart from all other films. My empathy. While watching this film, I was very empathetic to the three friends, Dr. Peter Venkman, Dr. Raymond Stantz, and Dr. Egon Spengler, as they figure out what to do with their talents in the world. Most of the screen time is given to Dr. Peter Venkman, often referred to as Venkman, who is a scientist with the least amount of scientific knowledge and aptitude, but the most amount of cunning to get by. He is not exactly a likable person, but he grows on the audience with every situation. He smooth talks to public figures, and he talks as if he's just an audience member experiencing it all, by saying to his compadres, "Please explain to me as if I'm not a scientist." Venkman also learns how to be a leader and a team player. At the heart of it, he's a good guy with a cynical outlook on life. Dr. Raymond Stantz, referred to as Ray, has a childlike enthusiasm for ghost busting, bridging the gap in the film between his partners Egon and Venkman. In the film, even Venkman calls him the heart of the Ghostbusters when introducing him to the public. Ray is the creative idea man, but not aware of the business end of things, so he makes a lot of choices that aren't exactly savvy. But the team seems to make the most of it and let him just be himself. Then there is Dr. Egon Spengler, also known throughout the film as simply Egon. He is the scientist's scientist. He is deeply enjoying the scientific discovery that the team is treading on. He is highly inquisitive, never smiles, never kids, even when he's saying something extremely hilarious. His nerdy seriousness is what legitimizes the delivery of the film's make-believe science. The trio of friends have a very unique relationship to one another. Egon and Ray geek out about their discoveries, gadgets, and research. Venkman respects Egon, and they have a very playful relationship that's very fun to watch. Venkman and Ray are probably the closest. They understand and look out for each other like brothers. When the Ghostbusters business becomes popular and they are in need of extra help, Winston Zeddemore is brought into the story about 40 minutes into the film. A lot of people say that Winston initially joins the team just for the money, but he's not in it for the money. He's in it for the job. There's a big difference. He is looking to pay his bills and make a living. He's an average guy, not a money-hungry person looking to get rich off the Ghostbusters. I think it's very important to clarify that. Winston goes through an intense arc of being an average guy / a non-believer, willing to do anything to get the job, and eventually into a believing official Ghostbuster by the end of the film. Winston and Ray develop a nice relationship as Winston puts his thoughts into the mix and pushes the story along. He is the one who makes the connection between the increase of ghost incidences and the possible end of the world. Winston is also the gateway to let the audience know that they can be Ghostbusters too, that you didn't have to be a scientist to do the job. The Ghostbusters also show Winston where to go and what to do in the film, and it's a clever way to do a little exposition about the technical side of their job. Dana Barrett is a gorgeous, independent woman who can stand her own in the world. She can also sense Venkman's bull immediately, but somehow she thinks he's slightly amusing. But most of all, she's interested in Venkman just to get the answers behind the paranormal incident at her apartment. It's mostly all business with her, but a bit of what the heck too. Once she becomes Zool, she becomes the gatekeeper. The infamous scene where she is trying to seduce Venkman only occurs because Venkman lies and tells her that he is the keymaster to get into her apartment to find out what's going on with her. Venkman proves that he's a decent guy by not taking advantage of her while she's possessed. Technically, the film is very good. Let's talk about the music. The music was a stamp on the movie that helped its popularity. Ray Parker Jr. wrote the famous theme song. However, he was not the first to be offered the job. Huey Lewis and the News was offered the job and turned it down. They later sued Ray Parker Jr. for plagiarism, citing the similarities between the theme song and an earlier hit, I Want a New Drug. Most of the effects were great. The light effects were done in camera with animation and optical printing, since there were no such CGI effects available in 1984. There's a callback to many movies in this film, such as Close Encounters of the Third Kind, released in 1977, having the door brightly lit on the other side to invoke mystery and suspense. A tricycle is left in the hallway in Dana's apartment building as an ode to The Shining, released in 1980. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is an ode to Godzilla. There is a note for Venkman that is an ode to Carrie, released in 1976. There's also a reference to The Exorcist, released in 1973 with Dana's levitation, but it's done this time with humor. The effect is an actual physical effect and not an optical effect. The actress was put in a full body cast and attached to a post that was hidden in the curtains. It's a very convincing effect, even today. Very well done. The cinematography was amazing and shocking that they could do this in 1984. And many of the fantasy shots were just amazing and so unique, they just remain iconic. The shots of New York City were wonderful. However, some of the blue screen work that was done and stop animation didn't hold up. Luckily, it doesn't preoccupy the film for very long. The character effects were the most believable of the effects, and many of those were sculpted and practically built. There was such care put into the characters and the filming of them in a way that helped tell the story as realistically as possible with the technology available. Miniature sets were built, and 3 versions of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man suits were built and destroyed in the production. Then, to sell his destruction, massive amounts of shaving cream was used to imitate the density of melted marshmallow. What a brilliant idea. The original version of the librarian ghost monster that was going to be used in the film was rejected because it would have been too horrifying for the audience. However, it was recycled and used in one of my favorite films, Fright Night, released in 1985. Of the effects, the character, later named Slimer, was highly regarded by the fans. But in 1984, he was simply called the Onion Head Ghost. He is the first ghost that the Ghostbusters capture, and on the set, Dan Aykroyd endearingly referred to the ghost creature as the ghost of John Belushi, who was to play Venkman but unfortunately died 2 years before the film's release. Performances. What an incredible cast for this film. All of the characters are played with a whimsical reality. Almost all of the scenes were ad-libbed, playing upon the relationships and the talents of the actors. This reminds me of the game show Whose Line Is It Anyway?, where expert comedians ad-lib off each other and leave its audience in stitches. So the situation is pretty much set up, and the participants use their talent to just simply go with it. Bill Murray is the star of this movie, no doubt about it, acting comedically with a natural charm. He is not going for goofy, but more cynical and blasé. Dan Aykroyd is great in the movie. He is so good at rapidly rambling off highly technical verbiage without blinking an eye. It was definitely a role he was meant to play. Harold Ramis really had no intention of starring in the film, only writing it, but he felt he was the best person suited for the role. And I can see why, because he supports the cast and legitimizes the situation with his presence. But his role of Egon is quite different from his actual personality that he had in real life, because if you look at any of the old interviews of Harold Ramis, he's quite smiley and a very soft-spoken guy. Sigourney Weaver was brilliant in this role. Unbeknownst to today's younger generation, at the time she was more of a natural beauty, playing rather serious roles. This role was a big departure for her. Being possessed by Zuul was the perfect vehicle to reveal a sexier side while being a powerful woman, as she kind of manhandles her prey. Rick Moranis as Louis Tully is absolutely incredible, very witty. Most of his lines were also ad-libbed. Everyone's just great in this film, everyone. My wish list. So believe it or not, I have a wish list for this movie, a very short one. When Janine is interviewing Winston for the job, part of the scene was deleted, explaining Winston's qualifications such as being an Army veteran, a former paramedic, and a construction worker. It would have been nice to have a small mention of this in the film, even if it's just a glance at a notepad on a desk while he's being interviewed. I also would have loved to know what happened to the ghost in the library. Did they go back there? What happened? I've always wondered about that. But otherwise, I'm pretty much out of wishes. The ending. The ending for me was just wonderful. A wonderful climax to a well-told film. Once all 4 of the Ghostbusters come together to make the team to go up against Gozer, it's really gratifying. This group of people you really want to rally behind, and the entire city does too. In a way, once you have that bonding with the crowd, you seem to have the same reaction as the crowd did at the end of the film, wanting more of the Ghostbusters. In summary, this holds a special place in my heart because I'm from New York, and the institution showed at the beginning of the film is Columbia University. My mom worked in the building right behind this statue for over 15 years. I worked in this building for 6 years. I remember when they were filming the Ghostbusters in the city and the buzz it created. So yes, I have some nostalgic goggles on, but I can take them off for this review. After learning how much improvisation went on in the film, it's almost incredible that these scenes come together to make a great story. Was it all an accident? There seemed to be a definite plan on what was going to happen in each scene, combined with the believable special effects and talented team of actors and comedians. The realistic dialogue came from the actors naturally. That is the main reason for its success. For me, this is a near perfect film. And sure, there are some goofs, mistakes, and some special effects that don't hold up over time. I still feel that this has everything that I want in an entertaining film. So that sums up my review. I hope you liked it, and please be sure to subscribe to this channel. I'll be posting many more reviews. And let's keep this discussion going. Leave your rating for the movie and why in the comments section. Take care, movie lovers, and off to my next review!